This video is about how to leave an abusive relationship the right way so that you're actually successful in doing so. This is hard. The average person leaves 6 or 7 times before leaving the final time. I don't know if that's a true statistic, but it's definitely quoted on the internet quite a bit. I know that for me, in my own personal experience, it did take several times. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is there's a lot of emotional flip-flopping that's common to happen. Another one is there's a lot of begging and pleading and promising from the other person and all of that. And these three things that I'm going to talk about will help you to have a better experience leaving and to do so more successfully. So let's get started. The first thing you need to do is to pick some permanent, irreversible steps that you're going to take in order to ensure that you actually leave the relationship for good. Now, why is it important to take permanent steps? It's because it's easy to reverse your decision, and there will be a lot of pressures to reverse your decision. So if it's easy to just go back to the house where you both live together, or just to go start talking to the person and then listening to them promising to do better, or any of those things, it's easy to go and do those things, and it can kind of wear down your willpower over time. So what do I mean by taking permanent steps? The first one is filing a police report if that's applicable, or calling 911 if that's applicable to the situation. That's a permanent step because it sets in motion certain things about the police and records and reports and things like that that are not just going to go away just because you went back to the house or started talking to the person again. Another example would be telling all of your friends and family about what's going on with the person. You can't untell them, if you do tell them. And all of these steps are going to be hard to take. It's like diving off a diving board into cold water, or jumping into like a freezing pool. But if you do them, what will happen is that it will be much harder for you to go back to that bad situation because everybody in your life will already know about it. They'll encourage you not to. The abusive person will probably be upset about it. There may be other consequences reputationally, etc. But the point is, it's going to make it harder to go back. And so I strongly encourage you, if you're in a situation that you have to leave, just do those things. Just take permanent steps because it makes it really hard for you to reverse your decision later. All right, thing number 2. The second thing you can do to prepare in advance before leaving an abusive relationship is to prepare for a lot of begging, pleading, and threats. Why does this type of manipulation tend to work on people who leave an abusive relationship? First of all, because you probably love the person, and second, because they probably know you pretty well. You love them and they know you pretty well, and abusive people can tend to be fairly manipulative. So you know what this sounds like if it's nice, right? It's like, I love you, I'll make your favorite food, like let's go do all that stuff that you love to do. I promise I'll change, I promise I'll be better, I won't do whatever it was that was the abusive behavior. And then on the threats, it's like scary stuff. It's like, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z to you, or to somebody that you care about, or your pet, or whatever it is. You also know what that is if you're in that situation. So it's this mix of like positive reasons to go back and negative reasons to go back and a bunch of promises and things like that. My advice to you is please mentally prepare for that to happen, right? If you just leave and then you get this person who's been acting, completely inappropriately, suddenly promising to do better and, acting really loving and maybe also threatening you a little bit, in mixed in, right? They're really pushing all of your buttons. That can be a powerful combination from somebody that you really love and from somebody where you really want that person to change. So just be ready for that. And part of the way that you be ready for that is thing number 1 that we talked about in the video, which is if you take permanent steps, it makes it much harder for you to undo your decision. One other permanent step I would take that's like a semi-permanent step would be blocking them on social media, on your phone, etc. Because then all of that talking and that manipulation, it just can't really happen. Just write a final message, write a goodbye, let them know that you're blocking them, and then block them, and try to stick to it. So that's thing number 2. And the third and final thing to do before leaving an abusive relationship in order to do so successfully is to process some of your key emotions before you leave so that they're not going to cause you to go back or to doubt your decision. For example, it's common to feel very conflicted about what to do in an abusive relationship because you love the person, but they're also doing things that are unacceptable. And so you have these really positive emotional feelings and these really negative emotional feelings and kind of balancing. You also have feelings of loyalty, possibly feelings of betrayal if they're acting the way that's not appropriate, to act in your culture, etc. And so it can leave you feeling like you don't know what the right decision is. And after you leave, you can doubt your decision. And so I encourage you in some way to try to process some of those important emotions before you leave, because it's going to make leaving a much more effective and consistent process as far as sticking to your decision. Now, how do you actually do that? There's a few ways. One is I have a video on processing your emotions that I'll link to in the description below that goes through some of the common ones. And even just hearing somebody else who's been through that kind of a situation describe some of those common emotions and how they process them, how they tend to work, etc., can really be helpful, because a lot of the time when we're going through something, it's harder to see it for what it is unless you take a step back and have somebody who's already been through a similar situation kind of point it out. But once it's pointed out, it's easier to recognize what's going on. So that's kind of the first thing you can do, is to watch that video or other content about emotional processing. The second one is just talk to people in your life about it, especially people who have been through something like this, if there is anybody like that in your life. And the third and final one would be to post online on anonymous online forums like reddit.com. Just reddit.com, and then there's forums for abusive relationships, domestic violence, etc. You can make a fake username, an anonymous username, and just talk about your story, post about your story, and talk about the emotions that you're experiencing. And that's going to help. That process of talking to other people, especially other people who have been through a similar situation, is really going to help to process some of those emotions more, and that's going to make it more successful when you leave. Even if you don't feel comfortable doing that, posting anonymously, you can just read the comments and situations that other people post in those situations and start to see how some of your own emotions may be reflected in those other situations. So that's it. That's the video. I really encourage you to do those 3 things in advance before you leave an abusive relationship, because that's going to help set you up for success. I invite you to check out the channel for other helpful content about emotional processing, what to do both before and after leaving an abusive relationship, what the right types of mindsets are about dealing with abusive behavior, etc. Good luck with your situation, and thanks for watching.